Those were people at work talking about work.
Well, let's take a look at that.
Cheese and wine on the lawn of Downing Street with the Prime Minister and his wife while the country languished in lockdown. According to the Guardian exclusive, the photo was taken in May last year when everyone else was told to meet only one other person outdoors.
Those were people at work talking about work.
That's not what Justice Secretary Dominic Raab said in not one but a whole series of interviews.
And sometimes, as in many work situations, particularly given the pressures that the number 10 team are under, they might have a drink after the formal business has ended. On occasion they had a drink afterwards. They would sometimes have a drink, and that's what you can see there. But that was primarily after the work meetings of the day.
The Justice Secretary said in a series of interviews that these social gatherings with cheese and wine were taking place after work, and not, as the Prime Minister now says, during it. Here is human rights barrister Adam Wagner.
Having heard Dominic Raab say this morning on Sky News that this was a drink after the formal business had ended, so after a press conference, doesn't sound convincing as a work gathering. It sounds a lot like a social gathering. And at the time, the rules were slightly different earlier in 2020 than they were at the time of these alleged Christmas parties in December. You could have a gathering in a non-public space, but you still had to be there with a reasonable excuse for having left your home. And one of those reasonable excuses, the only one that could have applied, was likely to be the need to work, where that could not reasonably be done at home. And I don't really see how a social gathering, as Dominic Raab seems to have suggested it was, after work, so after the working day, would fall within that reasonable excuse.
Even if what the Prime Minister said was true, and let's face it, even Larry the Cat knows it's not, how is it a defence to say people working in Downing Street at a time of national crisis were knocking back bottles of wine at work?